What's up, everyone? The breaking news just released in the Brent Key press conference. Haynes King has been named the starting quarterback for week one against Louisville. My name is Bryce Koon. This is Swarm Talk and an emergency press conference. We got to talk about this. Haynes King named the starting quarterback over Zach Piran and Zach Gibson. What does it mean for Georgia Tech? You're in the comments section. We appreciate you being here. Share it with your family. Share it with your friends. The road to 2K is still continuing. Week 0 on the way. We're going to have some best bets piece coming out. Notre Dame, Navy, Vanderbilt, Hawaii. What should we do? I'm taking Navy to cover, by the way. I just want to let Ralph know that in the background. All right, let's walk and let's talk here. Haynes King being named the starter. Now, a lot of questions. The big news, obviously, being that when you look at this was a true quarterback battle. That's the feeling amongst the sentiment of people in the room. Got off the phone with someone close to the program right before we went live here on a fantastic Tuesday to talk about this. Key naming Haynes King the starter. Now, a couple of takeaways from that. Let's start here. The trust factor. Do you trust this staff to make the decision after what you saw last year out of Zach Piran? And I'll say this. We joked on the live show on Sunday night. What would this look like? What would different things what kind of things would have to happen in order for certain quarterbacks to be effective? And I think that Haynes King fits the narrative being the most effective when it talks about distributing the football. So it's going to be very interesting to kind of watch and see what this group does. And let's get this shared on social. I mean, we're talking about, like, I told Ralph that I said, hey, we're going live. Can you create it? I jumped in the shower and I said, let's rock and roll. So Ralph's playing Madden right now. I mean, he's not even really paying attention. But that's what has to happen. But let's talk about this. Brent Key naming Haynes King the starter. Now, one of the big things you talk about, who made this decision, was based off this. Well, there is a leadership team inside the team, a group of players that have been kind of projected as leaders to help make decisions, because Key wants this to be kind of a player-led, a player governing body group. So he wants that. This decision was kind of also made with them in mind. How did the players feel? Because, look, one of the most important things that you have to have, and Tech fans know this, is that you have to have a team that believes in whoever is being that starting quarterback. So that's something that is going to be very interesting to kind of note, that the players said, hey, we're on board with this. Now, does this mean ill will? Just because someone wins a job, does it mean that there's ill will towards another person in the category of saying, this player's just not as good? No, I don't think that's the case. Look, fans fell in love with what, Zach Piran brought to the table. I think that when you also see kind of the emotional aspect of this, and I saw that my man Maxwell was saying this as well, when you see the emotional aspects that come into the decision-making part on fans, that can't happen on the coaching staff. And I've been saying this since December. Zach Piran came in last year and did what you needed him to do, and really what a lot of people outside of, maybe people close to him, fans who didn't really know a lot about him or didn't know the play style, really kind of exceeded expectations. And so you give him a hats off, you give him a hand clap for that right there. That's something that is phenomenal. But when you come into a starting role, way off the emotions, you're not playing for a coach's job. You're playing to try and win and get a bowl game. You have to put your best foot forward. If Zach Piran needs more development, well, then, folks, that's just where they're going to have to go with this. And so I think that it's going to be exciting to watch how Haynes King fits in this offense for me, because to me, he fits the prototypical point guard type of role that we talked about on Sunday night's live show. This is a guy that when you get him out in space, he can do things. He's mobile. And no, I'm not just saying that because we played with him on the NCAA 14 Revamped Dynasty. It's more of the sense of he has that skill set. Now, here's the caveat, the different things. And we're going to get to some of these things. And I see some of the comments right here. I figured Piran was the guy, was what Mojo Productions says right here. Tobias, honestly surprised but not upset. Maxwell, his comment, I think there's just still a lot of emotion behind supporting Piran. This is a good one too. Animal, appreciate you tuning in. I wonder what factors Key based his decision off of. And then you have this, we're going to suck in, mark it down. It's one of those things that, let's talk about to play the devil's advocate role. There has been a lot of not just national conversation, but conversation amongst Georgia Tech fans that Haynes King never really delivered on the potential while he was in College Station. I look at it two different ways. Yes, you're correct. He never found the consistency that he needed to be able to be the guy for them, but he's got talent. And I think that everyone across the country could say A&M was not the best atmosphere over the past 2 to 3 seasons to develop yourself as a young player, to develop yourself as a young talent. So coming into the system, Chris Winkie and Buster Faulkner, keep this in mind. Both recruited him when they were at their respective other schools. So they liked what they saw from a scheme perspective out of King. So I think that it's going to be interesting to kind of watch how this plays out. Do I think this means the quarterback battle is cut and dry, over, done with? No. But I think that we need to just sit back and say, okay, look, King has talent. He hasn't delivered on it. And those are very true statements. But also, you can say that A&M wasn't the best place for him to develop the talent. If he comes here, maybe in a less, and I think this is fair, and Ralph, I know you're in the background, but I think it's fair to say that Georgia Tech is in a less, what's the word I'm trying to think of here, Ralph? He's in a less, not desirable, that's the wrong word, less desperate situation to win than A&M. A&M's got to win this year. Georgia Tech doesn't have to win this year and heads will roll. Like it's very much a different scenario. So Haynes King winning this job, I think he's a guy that can go out and deliver the football. I think he's a guy that can get it to the playmakers. And we're going to touch on that here in just a second, but I want to go back to Piran. I've been saying this since last year. Zach Piran is a great competitor, a great leader, and he's exactly what Georgia Tech needed down the last 7 or 8 games of that stretch when Key was the interim coach. All of those things are true. He's exactly what you needed. But what we also have to understand is you can't make an emotional decision based off of one small sample size. You just left a regime, a situation where that was the exact case. The exact case. So not just, I think it was a wise job of Brent Key, Chris Winkie, and Buster Faulkner, even though the bond and the ties between Key and Piran are very strong, Key being a guy that really recruited him out of the state of Alabama. Even though you have that, understanding that this is, one of the things that you kind of sit here and say, look, you did what we needed right then. This is where we feel we're best for the job right now, and this is where we're going to go. Like I said, I don't think this is cut and dry. I think that you could see Piran take snaps as early as week 3 or week 4. King did not win this job by a landslide because now we're waiting. We're 10 days out from the first game, 9 days out, however long, and you still kind of feel like it could have gone either way. I think guys are very close. They're similar players. Piran's leadership, his ability to command an offense we saw last season. But did it mean he didn't need more seasoning? Yes. And so your perfect scenario is that King wins the job and you see him just kind of come into his own at Georgia Tech. He gets that second chance. Piran, maybe he gets to redshirt this season. Or one of those things. And I actually think he redshirted last season, so it wouldn't matter. I apologize on that. But he gets to learn this season, continue to develop, and you enter a situation where you kind of go, whenever King leaves, then Piran steps up. Then you have Aaron Philo, you got other guys, and you start to build quarterback continuity in Atlanta, which just has is just kind of wild. So I like the fact that they had a real competition, I think, because this was one of them. And here's kind of the tidbit that I was given right before we went live here, is that Saturday's scrimmage, folks left that scrimmage feeling like King would be the guy. And one of the biggest reasons is he looked crisp. He was able to deliver the football with authority to playmakers. And look, this offensive staff is really excited about some of the guys that they have in tow to be able to make plays offensively. And so when you kind of usher in a quarterback that I don't think is going to be the flashiest, but once again, he can be the point guard of the offense. And if he is able to do that, they feel like they've got playmakers. We talked about it on Sunday night. Dominic Blaylock might not even start for this team. And that just shows you kind of the depth they're building at receiver that I think that is going to be very interesting. Christian Leary, have heard multiple reports that DJ Moore is catching everything, anything and everything within a nice radius. So I really like the way that they're kind of going with that. Zach Piran, though, is going to be able to learn and develop. I don't think that this is over. He's going to be able to continue to develop that skill set. And you also saw last year injuries happen, things happen. You have a guy in that third spot in Zach Gibson that if you game plan him for him, you are more than capable of having consistent quarterback play, average level quarterback play. You can have that. So I really like that. Now let's get into kind of the fan perspective. We've talked about these things. Let's get into the fan perspective of this and a shorter, just quick live show to kind of how we react to this. That Haynes King being named the starter at Georgia Tech. When we take a look from a fan's perspective, the guy that we wanted to win doesn't win. Here's what I have to say to that. If you're choosing to cheer for ill will towards the starter of your favorite team so that a guy that you feel more emotionally connected to can win, you probably got your priorities messed up and cheering for a team to be successful. After the past 3 or 4 years where we have just seen this team be abysmal at times, show competitive nature, if Haynes King won the job outright, and I truly believe under this staff that competition is really happening, then give him a hand clap, give him a pat on the back, and say, let's go win that ball game against Louisville. If that's what happened, let's go win that ball game against Louisville. Because you have to, like we talked about, if the team and this leadership council, if this group said, yeah, we're behind him, folks, that does a lot for a team. I don't know if we could really say that that has been kind of the team atmosphere over the past 4 years of who's been under center. But if you're in a situation here this season where they're on agree with it, as fans, take your hands off the reins and just let this thing ride. Because if you've got a group that believes in who's under center, the staff believes in him, and truthfully, practices are closed anyway. Any notes, tidbits anybody's getting, whether credentialed media or not, is coming from sources and insiders. So there's no real, to me, there's no real evidence outside. And Jonesy, I get it, outside of A&M, his struggles at A&M, and Piran's success last season that support the thought that Piran should have been named starter. To the average fan's knowledge, there's none of that. So my take with this, my thought with this is, if you're a Georgia Tech fan, you say that's great, but let's go win football games. And it kind of brings me to the last point here. If King doesn't pan out, look, guys, you got Zach Piran, who's already shown. Zach Piran has already shown the ability, folks, to come in when you're really not expecting him to, and kind of batten the hatches down, kind of, save the sinking ship. I don't think Georgia Tech is going to be a sinking ship with Haynes King quarterback, but if it doesn't pan out, it's not necessarily on the coaching staff. You could question it, but listen, folks, players react different in practices than in games. That's the reason I don't think that this quarterback position battle is over, because while King may have shown more in scrimmages and, in practices, when we get to September 1st against Louisville, if he looks, like a deer in the headlights for the first quarter and a half, you best believe that Brent Key is going, and Chris Winkie and Buster Parker say, all right, put Piran in. That's what I'm saying. I don't think this thing is cut and dry, but I think that this is something that when we look and kind of go back and see, you have two capable quarterbacks and you got a capable backup. You had to name a starter. They went with King. He's obviously, like we mentioned earlier in the show, a guy that I think that Faulkner and Winkie are familiar with when they were recruiting him out of high school. They knew that his play style would fit what they wanted to do. That's probably what played into this a little bit. And he delivered. Like I said, last Saturday, all the, the inklings coming out of that scrimmage would look that he looked like he was dotting the ball, getting it to playmakers as well. Whether that's guys out of the backfield, Dante Smith, also Jamal Haynes, that we're also hearing is going to be a really, really big piece of this tailback room. But wide receivers as well, tight ends. You got to have a guy that can deliver football. And if that is Haynes King, and he gives you a better chance to compete, you need to get over the emotional attachment to other players. And you need to say, hey, this is who we like. You can have your favorite players. You can appreciate what Zach Piran did. And I also still think he is a much bigger part of the plans than maybe the initial reaction than people think he is. I think that he's still got a great play, but obviously King's ceiling, what he can do, if they have that ability to go out there and make an impact in week one, I'm telling you, heading into the South Carolina State game, folks, you're going to be thinking, and if Tech wins this game against Louisville and Haynes King helps you do that, no one's going to remember, but we're going to pull up receipts because Ralph's got the receipts. We'll pull it up where you said that it wasn't. And if it's not, well, great. Hindsight's always 2020. So you think you were right. No, it's just how it happened. Because truthfully, nobody knows what kind of edge, what kind of movement these quarterbacks made during the summer and during fall camp. That's why I think that this is a really, really nice pickup, I should say, going back to the portal. I think it's also, a telling sign that competition is real in Atlanta for the first time in a while. Let's get to some of the comments here. I know we were doing that. Mr. Singh, I'm on campus right now, and wow, can't say I didn't expect it. Appreciate you tuning in. It's one of those things that, I think it's good. Chase Fletcher here. Look, we went live. We're going to, Ralph, you tell me if you can hear it. We're going to have people cutting grass outside the apartment, but it'll be okay. It'll be completely okay. Chase Fletcher, I like Piran, but we putting the hurt on Louisville either way. Key's doing what's best for the team. To hell with Georgia. Mojo, meaning our other wide receivers on the roster are better and beat him out for a spot. Trevor, appreciate you tuning in. Tuned in on my lunch break. Go Jackets. T Branch, I like it. King can attempt to redeem himself. Piran maintains his red shirt if things go bad. We have two more quarterbacks that I trust to play. That's a really positive outlook, and I think it's something, Branch, that we like it. Mojo, I'm all in for King. Let's go beat Louisville. Let's keep going. This is huge. John Burns, comment of the day so far. Well, that is great news. It shows no favoritism, and I know that's what you meant to say. I'm with you. It shows no favoritism, folks, because it would have been seriously really easy. Like, it would have been really easy if you played the favoritism card for Brent Key to say, yep, Zach Piran's the guy. He's the guy. You see what he did for us last year? But what has he continued to say? Let's go back to ACC Media Days. When asked about continuity of the roster, when asked about other things, Key said, look, it's a brand new year. Yes, you have pieces you can take in. And now looking back, folks, you have pieces you can take in. That's what he said. Looking back, folks, is it that surprising that it's King? He kind of laid the groundwork for this decision back in July up in Charlotte. He kind of did. PJ, appreciate you tuning in. Man, I knew it at the spring game, but ultimately I trust Coach Winkie, and I think that the experience of Winkie and Faulkner should give you confidence in this decision. Vince Wilkes, obviously, Key was watching tape of Koon playing King in NCAA 14. Look, you got to utilize the play-action rollout. And if that's it, then Brad Morrell needs to be the OC. Mr. Singh, if fans had their way on all their preferences, then GT would never win a football game again. It's going to be very interesting. John Burns, I thought Piran was going to win the starting job, but I have faith in the staff and can only go Jackets. All right, I like it. Matt, really great comment here. Buster knows a ready QB when he sees one. I trust this decision. Continue to go. I swore Brody Rhodes was going to start. Maybe next year in our dynasty. He might just do it. Let's keep going. I'm shocked they didn't wait till kickoff and make Louisville sweat. Jay, appreciate you tuning in. Here's my take on that. I think the idea of not announcing a starting quarterback and just letting it roll out there, if you're doing it for the purposes of making another team sweat, that is a vastly overrated take. Because if defensive coordinators and opposing staffs and analysts and people who go through film, if they can't game plan for two different guys, and that throws them off to the point of where they're sweating and they have no plan, you probably shouldn't be coaching at the Division I level. That's just kind of my. Matt Brooks, section 104, seat 36. I think he just gave away my seat number. Key has always said he's going to play the blessed players. 104 about to be booming. Look, folks, I trust the decision. We all could be sitting here in 2 weeks looking like fools, and it might happen. But look, it's not going to happen because so-and-so fan said it, or so-and-so podcaster said it, or so-and-so writer said it. If Haynes King isn't the starting quarterback past week one, or he loses the job and Piran takes over, it's what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of people come to you and say, I told you so. No, you didn't, because you didn't know. And no one does. This is a reaction. This is thoughts on it. This is strictly one of those things where unless you are in the room or at the practice, if you're in the quarterback room, you're at practice watching, you truly don't know. You truly don't know. But Haynes King does win the starting job. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this team week one. Now you have two quarterbacks getting their first ever start for their respective teams week one. Haynes King for Georgia Tech and Mr. Plummer for Louisville. Look, folks, it's going to be a really, really, really fun game. Hey, I appreciate you so much for tuning in, especially all the people who joined in maybe here a little bit late. You can watch this archived on our channel. You can head over to thecrowdedbooth.com, check that out as well. Appreciate Ralph for setting up the show. He's in the background playing Madden, having a good time. Thanks so much for watching. We're going to keep talking Thursday night, folks. Remember, every single Sunday and Thursday night, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. We're going to be live talking about the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, but a little emergency show today, a breaking news show, and I appreciate it because what it shows is that you care. It also shows that you probably have your subscription to the channel completely free. Just hit that button down there. And you also probably have this as well, your notifications set up. You knew when we went live. Appreciate you so much for tuning in. We're going to talk next time about more of this roster and more of this offense, and we're going to take some questions. We might even take some calls on Thursday night. We'll see. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll talk to you once again. See you next time.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The crowded booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.